welcome back to another Star Mini Gaming YouTube video. As always, my name is James, and I wanted to open up this video with a brief apology that I know I've fallen a little bit behind in terms of the narrative reviews that I've been doing, right? Honestly, the average review video ends up being about 20 minutes in length, but in total time it takes to put in to make the video when it's reading or rereading the story to have it kind of fresh on my mind, the note-taking, recording the video, editing the video, and getting it up is probably a 6 or 7 hour process for each one of them, you know, right? It's for like 20 minutes worth of film, and I just honestly haven't gotten that done, but I am currently working on the next one. My schedule's been really busy, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. But to fill in, as I've posted already in my first video, I got the Balance of Power book in yesterday. It gave me some ideas for some scenario play. That I tried out a little bit of that today at a local event that I held in my shop. I was initially going to go to a different local store that I actually used to frequent quite often before I opened up my own store, but I ended up electing not to, simply because the players that I was going to go with to this tournament are less experienced than I am, and I don't have a lot of experience. I think I've played maybe my 11th or 12th game today, and these folks have all played probably around 6 or 7 games a piece now. One of them probably about 4, but they weren't quite comfortable trying to take on like that, you know, that uber competitive, crowd that you get so often, especially with one of the local guys running Scarbrand, which it's debatable, of course, you know, how powerful a lot of these units are. I put Scarbrand in that kind of like super heavyweight class, like with the Archeons and with the Nagashas of the world. Clearly he's not as good as them, but I think he's close enough to be considered in that same kind of group, at least with his offensive capabilities, right? So what I'm doing today, and maybe a few times in the next upcoming days, I'm going to try to anyways, is what I'm going to be titling Age of Sigmar Narrative Nuggets, and right, for the alliteration, because, you know, who doesn't love alliteration, right? And I'm gonna, in this, you know, the Balance of Power book, there are quite a few segments that are relatively brief, you know, probably around 8 to 10 pages on average, maybe a little bit more for some, of narrative. And I'm going to briefly discuss them in these shorter videos. This one will obviously be a little bit longer as I'm explaining the process of all these. So let's go ahead and get started with the one that interests me the most, and I've gotten a lot of people asking about this one in particular, and you know, how this might relate to upcoming releases and all with the Death faction. So this is the Raising of New Lamia, or New Llama Land, as I jokingly refer to it. It is catching us up with the 3rd Mortarch. If you've watched the reviews that I've already done, or listened to the GW audio drama series, the first one that they've done, that covered Tarsus the Bullheart and his Hallowed Knights detachment, in the Realm of Death, we've already seen what happened in Gash in the Age of Sigmar, and we've seen bits of the earlier backstory kind of fleshed out in this book and in others, even before the events of, you know, kind of like the current Age of Sigmar once the war has started. We saw what happened to Arcane the Black in that series, and also Manfred. So Neferata is the only Mortarch that wasn't covered there. So in this, we have kind of an interesting bit. We have a Chaos Lord of Slaanesh, who I'll probably butcher his name, but it looks like it's pronounced Lasilion, which was interesting because, you know, first off, he's a Slaanesh Lord, and if you follow the fluff, Slaanesh is kind of missing in action. And if you watched the Warhammer Weekly with Vince and Tom, we joked that the reason Slaanesh is missing in action is because Cetra found him or her first in the warp whenever he walked in at the end of the end times and was beating the snot out of Slaanesh, so that's why Slaanesh has not been present at the moment. But he's leading some forces and they're attacking New Lamia, which is, you know, Neferata's capital city that she lives in. And her commander, who is kind of a bumbling fool, what was his name? His name is Harkdrawn, or Harkdrawn, however you want to pronounce it. He's a vampire lord, and he's been leading her defenses, and basically they're losing the fight. And she tells him, "You failed me, but don't worry, I'm going to give you another chance. You're still commanding the defenses. Go out there, fight for us. Don't worry, reinforcements are coming." And she has no intention of sending additional reinforcements. She doesn't believe that anybody else is coming. She just wants to send him there to buy her time to get away. And she knows that because her city is such a luxurious place of excess, that's just part of who she is. She uses those things to manipulate others, that this will appeal to the Slaaneshi Chaos warriors that are here. It will buy her additional time. So she makes her plans to escape. But unexpected for her, there is a Stormcast Eternal invasion of this city to stop the, well, I guess not truly an invasion of the city. They arrive in the city behind the Chaos forces and begin to attack. And this, of course, turns the tide of the battle against the Chaos forces. And Neferata, of course, being an intelligent individual, I almost said human being, an intelligent vampire, knows who the Stormcast are and ultimately why they are here. And she seeks to use their mission to her own advantage. And so she goes out onto the battlefield with her Morghast bodyguards, and she's trying to fight her way to these Sigmar forces. They are, let's see, they are the Anvils of the Heldenhammer, which they seem pretty neat. I honestly I'd seen their paint scheme before, but I haven't seen them in any of the narrative thus far up until now. So it was kind of neat to see someone new. But they come in, and of course they start, you know, whooping up on the Chaos forces, and the you know, the guard of whatever his name was again, Hark the Drone, you know, he's not intelligent enough to realize, hey, these guys are fighting Chaos, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, at least for now. And so he attacks both, and Neferata is not able to get to him at first, so wherever she can, she's like trying to get to him and to his forces, and as she approaches, you know, the forces that are under their control, she's using her magic to be like, don't attack the Stormcast, just attack Chaos, the Stormcast are here to help us, kind of thing. And so everywhere that she goes, the troops, you know, slowly begin to stop attacking the Stormcast. And as this battle continues, this dark storm cloud kind of like comes overhead, and it's this incredible amount of power, and it just sends out this shockwave that, like, you know, is basically affecting everybody, you know, dead troops, Stormcast and Chaos alike. And they're just, you know, quite a few of them are obliterated instantly, or just, you know, torn to pieces, whatever. And Neferata realizes that this is Nagash, and that he has returned, and that her hopes of kind of taking over his old empire, which is, you know, the entire realm of death, was clearly in vain. And then this Chaos Lord realizes that that this is probably going to be, you know, a defeat for him, but he wants to take Neferata out with him. So he's riding his, you know, snake-like mount over to kill her, and she doesn't see it coming, and he's about to strike too fast, and all of a sudden, down comes a lightning bolt of Sigmar, and out comes the, which one is it? It is the Knight Azeros with his lantern, and he cuts off the head of this Chaos Lord's mount and saves Neferata, and basically says, my Lord Sigmar basically requests that that we have an audience with you. We're looking to form an alliance. And then Nagash kind of fully shows up, and he says, "Repeat what you just told her, because I'm in charge." And so he says the same thing. He's like, Sigmar desires an audience with you. And the story in this ends with Nagash being like, kind of like, let me consider that. And it's a bit of a cliffhanger. Like, Nagash doesn't answer. He doesn't say like, let me consider that or anything. And what's interesting is that this story is clearly after the events that surround Tarsus, the Bullheart, and his Stormcast. And in that one, we see Nagash is so outraged towards Sigmar in the moment. He's angry because he knows, he can sense that Tarsus was originally from the Realm of Death, and he feels that it was not Sigmar's right to take Tarsus and some of the other Stormcasts that came from the Realm of Death from him. So he's initially very angry. But at this point in time, he's apparently had enough time to, kind of cool off and be a bit more reasonable and logical about it. But we don't know if, he's willing to ally with Sigmar. I would assume not. Maybe he is, and maybe he chooses to, but with the way the story has progressed thus far with the Death faction, I would assume that he will not, at least for now, or at least not wholly, because, again, at the end of the audio drama series, he talks about waging war with everybody and conquering the other mortal realms for himself. So I expect that it will kind of continue on that line of, for now, until, the Destruction faction really comes into play, of this kind of three-way triangular war between all the factions to help, to kind of help keep everything checked between, and to truly have, this kind of balance of power between the three sides, so that no one gets too much of a leg up on the others. So, like I said, that's just a shorter little narrative review. There will be more of these. I'm going to go through each of the different narrative segments in this book, as well as reviewing other aspects of it, and I'm going to keep posting up these shorter videos while I continue to work and try to get ahead again on the larger narrative reviews that I'm doing. So I hope that this kind of is an acceptable filler for you all until then. But until next time, this is James, and happy gaming.